Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Makeover Monday. Monday morning's the day that we sort of, check in with like how we did last week, how we did with our personal integrity, how we did with the things that we can control. A lot of things out there I can't control, but there's a lot of things I can control. How I relate to problems, how I relate to good fortune. Good fortune can cause a real problem. Sometimes good fortune can wreck your life. How am I going to relate to that? How am I going to relate to a broken heart, some reversal in life? How am I going to relate to it? How am I going to react to it? Am I taking care of my health? Am I taking care of my diet? Am I taking care of my spiritual life? It's Monday, and if you did bad last week or if you did good last week, we're going to recheck in with what's important and what is not so important. We put the first things first. I know what I'm going to do, Kaustubha, this week.
Yeah.
This week, really, really, really refining my diet, my japa. Also, no phone with the japa. We talked about that yesterday. I got a lot of good feedback from that. No phone. Keep your phone away. Keep your phone. And also, one thing that we did a while ago that I sort of got lazy about was as soon as you wake up, you don't check any type of social media whatsoever.
Okay.
All you do is check the message from Kaustubha. That's what I do. Just because Kaustubha sends me morning messages. Generally something like, "Good morning, sweet love." And I say, "Good morning, sweet love." And and so and get right into your morning program, morning routines.
Nice.
Yeah. And getting rid of that snooze button. I've been a little snooze positive lately. Like, just 10 more minutes. Snooze. Snooze is a problem. I don't need it. You don't need that 10 minutes. No more snooze.
You actually do need
no
it.
Snooze.
But you just need to do something better with it, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's like you wake right. Ever have this one? You're like wake right up, but you're like, but I'm gonna hit snooze anyway. It's like I'm feeling good, but
I never ever use snooze. It's just a faculty that I just don't use. Yeah.
Good for you.
I mean, I might go back to sleep or something, but I don't use the snooze thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm there.
All right.
You want a little nugget for today? A little
Yes.
nectar nugget?
Yes. What do you got for me today?
3 types of happiness according to the Bhagavad-gita.
Oh, yeah. This is good stuff to know about.
This is valuable stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about happiness more in the class today, so this is appropriate.
Well, it's one of those things like Bhagavad-gita is for all people. Everybody wants happiness. Bhagavad-gita is not a Hindu scripture. Bhagavad-gita is for the soul. And so if you're a soul, you're qualified to hear the Bhagavad-gita. It's got nothing to do with what country you're born. And that's the beautiful thing about the Bhagavad-gita. It's got nothing to do, in one sense, with these where you're born. That doesn't make you qualified to be born into an Indian family. The soul has got nothing to do with the gender, the race, even the religion of the body. You can change all those things. They're changeable. You can change your religion. You can change your gender. You can change what else can you change? Your hair color,
Close.
you change your clothes. But you can't change the fact that you're a spirit soul. That's what we are. And therefore the Gita is, and all this literature is like, we call it Sanatan Dharma, the Dharma of the soul. And everybody's got a soul. Eternal stuff. Oh, sir. So if you're interested in happiness, we got something for you. According to the Gita, there's 3 types of happiness. This is from chapter 18, text 37. That which in the beginning may be like poison. That which is in the beginning is just like poison, but at the end is sweet like nectar.
Mm-hmm.
And which awakens one to self-realization is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness.
Satvaguna.
So what are those things that are sort of bitter in the beginning? Any type of discipline. I'm writing my autobiography right now, my memoirs. Memoirs sounds much more classy.
Oh, yes, it does.
I'm writing my memoirs. But it's all about my, especially first getting into bhakti. And it was all such a struggle to discipline the senses. And you never realize how difficult they are until you try to control them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, this sounds good. This sounds noble. This sounds righteous. And it's like you struggle. And then you do good for 2 weeks and then you struggle. So those are poisonous. And
Waking up
nectar.
early. Waking up early,
not hitting snooze, chanting on a regular basis, or reading sacred literature. The mind wants to go to a bunch of nonsense. So we curb it. And from that, we develop the better habits. We're into better habits here on Wisdom of the Sages, creating better addictions for us.
You get happier.
Yeah, that which in the long run is going to be like nectar.
Mm-hmm.
We throw that word around. That's another word. That's one of those bhakti words that you never say in the course of a regular life. No one says nectar, do they?
I think people that work with bees and stuff.
Work with bees, they call it nectar, but for the most part, no one says nectar. It's a bhakti word. I say nectar 20 times a day. Nectar, give me some nectar. Oh, that's nectar. That book was nectar. One of those Hare Krishna words. Okay, the next one. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects. And which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end is said to be in the nature of passion. What's a good example of that?
Corn chips.
Yes, salty corn chips. Appears like nectar. 20 minutes later, bag is gone. Appears like poison. Feeling like poison. Anything with the contact of the senses, and you try to satisfy those senses. And you end up by saying this famous mantra: "What have I done? What have I done?" That is the mode of passion mantra. And the next one, the happiness which is blind to self-realization. You're not even thinking about it, which is delusion from beginning to end. This is one of those things where, you're going to a teenager and you're like, this is going to be crazy. Oh my God, let's just do it. What are we thinking? Let's just do it. That type of thing. That's a problem. It's blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance.
Intoxication, things like that.
To have reckless behavior. We get that.
Violence, destruction.
Violence, destruction. I'm just going to say everything you say, but say it more lively. Destruction. Random acts of violence. This is crazy. All right. So we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we got a new chapter, my friend.
All right. No, actually, we're winding up the last chapter, actually.
Okay. Chapter 4. It's been a long weekend.
Yeah, we'll get to the new chapter, but let's wrap it up. We're in text 32 of third canto, chapter 4.
Oh yeah, we're almost.
So Vidura has been speaking this whole chapter for a while now. He's been speaking with Uddhava, and Uddhava's going to say, now you go to Maitreya. So today Uddhava's going to meet Maitreya. And where's he going to meet him? Quiz, Raghu, hot seat.
Bhadrinath.
No.
Hastinapur.
No.
Prabhas.
No.
Haridwar.
Yes.
I was like, one of these holy cities has to be right. Dwarka.
Yeah, he's going to meet him in Haridwar on the bank of the Ganges.
All right, text 32. Sukadev Goswami informed the king that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge and the spiritual master of the three worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of Badarik Ashram and engaged himself there in trance to satisfy the Lord.
Yeah, so he went up to Badarik Ashram.
Okay, that's where I got it confused.
Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the supersoul in the mortal world, which is the subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages.
The Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for any other than his devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. That is a great verse. Can I read that again?
Go for it.
That is great. The Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes. What are some extraordinary pastimes? Name three. Just do it.
You know, when I hear this, I'm immediately thinking of where this is going to go in the coming chapters. And, you know, I tell you, I want to give a plug to something, Raghu.
Okay.
It's this book called Srimad Bhagavatam at a Glance.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it was written by Narayani Devi, who I never heard speak, but for years I've been hearing about her, and she teaches at Vrindavan. She's like a Bhagavatam scholar.
Oh.
Right? So she broke down this book is rare. It's hard to find. If you could start Googling for this book
Immediately. Let's go.
Yeah, because
the whole message board is going crazy.
Yeah, because I wanted to kind of give this book a plug, and then I looked around and like Amazon is like $50 or something like that. But I did find it certain places for like $7. You know, you got to look around for this book, and I don't know how many of them are out there still. But Srimad Bhagavatam at a Glance, it's got these, you know, like mind maps of all the different chapters, but they're mind maps that are drawn like lotus flowers, and each petal is like a different chapter or a different point. So she breaks everything down really well in this book, and it's got these big maps that you can fold out too. It's like these like fold out things.
Fold out things?
Yes.
And a book is like...
and they're all really well drawn and everything. So I wish I knew the name of the artist right now, but Narayani Devi is the one that did that. They collaborated.
Mara, do we have that in the Super Soul library?
I've never seen it before.
Yeah, you got to find that. Get yourself a copy, Raghu, before everyone else does. Raghu's going to check out for a few minutes here.
Excuse me, I'm going to block my...
So like with the third canto, she breaks it into two sections, and then she breaks those sections into sections. So we're wrapping up the first section of the third canto right now. We're wrapping up the first section of the first section because it's divided. So, you know, she divides it in that first section into three. The first ones are all about Krishna's pastimes, and we've been hearing about those. We heard Uddhava describe the pastimes within Vrindavan. We heard him describe the pastimes outside of Vrindavan, and now they're going to break up. Now the next 5 or so chapters are going to be about creation, and then after that, there's a whole bunch of chapters that are about what was it described here? Extraordinary pastimes. So the past, you know, in one sense, whether the creation is being described here as an extraordinary pastime, that may be. You know, I don't know if the word Leela was used here. Generally, we don't use the word Leela to describe that, but maybe we do. And so certainly that's extraordinary how the Lord creates the material world. But then there's a whole section of chapters that are all about the Lord appearing as a boar, right? This is extraordinary. Right?
Extraordinary. So
we get some really extraordinary pastimes there. And so I think that this verse may be alluding to what's about to come up, you know, about the extraordinary pastimes of him appearing as a boar.
They're extraordinary. They're like, who could come up with that? And then God is going to appear as a tusked pig, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, you could just say boar rather than tusked pig.
Yes. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Yes.
And his various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anybody. Like, try to explain that to anybody. Try to bring that home on Christmas Eve to your parents and your siblings. Yeah, and then my God descended as a boar. It's like most people are like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, and the beast, I think in the commentary probably will speak about like what's categorized as a beast.
Ooh,
Let's
is
see.
that read worthy?
Well, I don't know. It's somewhere down there. Parents.
His devotees understand. And for the
anyone who
beasts,
is
they are
against
simply
the transcendental loving service of the Lord is more or less beastly. It's more or less the beastly creature. You know.
Yeah, sometimes you got to call it out. You're being like a beast. Understanding. Why don't you read this one? Text 35.
Text 35. Understanding that he was remembered by Lord Krishna while quitting this world, because Krishna was telling Uddhava, go to Bhattacharya ashram, and by the way, on the way you can meet with Vidura. So understanding that he was remembered by Lord Krishna while quitting this world, Vidura began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love.
Ooh,
That's
real Valentine's Day.
He remembered me. Right? He's thinking like that. Even just as he was leaving this world, he could have been thinking of anyone who's thinking of me. Why me? I'm not worthy. And he's crying, but feeling ecstasy in that crying. Okay.
Krishna's Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
After passing a few days on the bank of the river Yamuna, Vidura, the self-realized soul, reached the bank of the Ganges, where the great sage Maitreya was situated.
All right. Now we're ready to start.
Just hearing about the Yamuna and the Ganges makes me want to go to the Yamuna and the Ganga. What are we doing?
Man, I tell you, I'm feeling it.
Just
I'm
hearing
totally
that.
feeling it. Yeah.
Okay, we're on a new chapter.
Yeah, text 1.
Vidura's talks with Maitreya. Chapter 5, text 1. Sukadeva Goswami said, Vidura, the best of the Kuru, amongst the best of the Kuru dynasty, who is perfect in bhakti, thus reached the source of the celestial river Ganga in Haridwar.
Ganga Devi ki jai.
Now, do you know Haridwar has 2 different meanings? See, when you write it like this, Haridwar.
Haridwara, yeah.
Well, this is Hardwar. So it's the gateway to Har. It's the gateway to Shiva. Har is Shiva. And Haridwar, if you say it Haridwar, is the gateway to Vishnu. Isn't that interesting? It's dependent.
Okay. Did they fight over this?
Nah.
Everyone's cool?
Everyone's cool with it. Okay. It depends. It's just sort of like it's to each his own. Yogi's choice.
All right.
Where Maitreya, the great fathomless learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about this verse too, okay?
Sure.
Because we've been building up to this, and now this verse initiates, practically 2 large cantos of Bhagavatam. It's going to consist of the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. A lot of great stuff is going to come out in these 2. 3rd canto, 4th canto. It's about their conversation, and this is something that we see like again and again and again in Bhagavatam, in Mahabharata, in the Upanishads, Bhagavad-gita, that there's a qualified questioner and a qualified answerer, right? And therefore the conversation back and forth becomes very very worthy. Yeah, very productive. Yeah, on the spiritual level. Srila Prabhupada would give the example. He would say, like, if it requires both. If a woman is fertile and a man is potent, then they can have a child, right?
Yeah.
And so similarly, if the questioner has the right mood, right, and the answerer has the right mood and the right understanding, then transcendental knowledge can be, transmitted from one to the next.
Sometimes like a guru, if you ask them a question that's just like a mundane question, sometimes they don't even answer you.
Has that happened to you before?
Yes, just sort of like look away, like, oh, was I stupid? This is stupid. Why did I say that? Yeah, you can't. You gotta. It should be a significant. You don't waste the guru or the teacher's time with with foolish questions that don't have to do with transcendence.
Mm.
And in the same sense, the guru, the relationship is transcendental. It shouldn't go off course. And if we have a sacred relationship with a person, and Krishna will send you a sacred relationship, God will send you a sacred relationship. Keep it sacred. Keep it sacred, right? Don't let it deteriorate to something lower. Does that make sense, Mara? Got that? You keep that in your forefront.
I'm writing this down. God will send you a sacred relationship. Keep it sacred.
Keep it sacred. Keep it sacred.
There's got to
Because
be some Latin for that. Keep it sacred. Mara, can you come up with that for us?
Mara, did you learn Latin there in private school?
I did, but I forgot it all.
I mean, it probably sounds really good in Latin, like something sacramento. Or
Sacramento.
Like maybe one of the Italians can help us with that.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's right. So this is the whole point to human life, right? Is that we have the opportunity to enter into a sacred relationship wherein transcendental knowledge can be transmitted from one to the other. That's our potential, right? That's what we're meant. That's what we're here for. That's what we're meant to achieve. But then we really have to look at this and just see that the clues are always there, and the commentators will again draw circles, a nice red circle around these things. It doesn't just say Vidura met Maitreya, but it talks about Vidura's qualities. And this is why he's has that potential to ask the right questions and to receive them in such a way where they don't just bounce off or go in one ear and out the other, but they change the heart. They elevate the mind and the consciousness. They
Right.
liberate one. So what's mentioned here is that it says Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence. Interesting, right?
Interesting.
He's perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence. Satisfied in transcendence. Let's take a look at the Sanskrit over here. Satisfied in transcendence. I would expect, but I don't know anything about Sanskrit, so I'm not good with this stuff. But satisfied in transcendental qualities. Abhi triptaha. Right. Okay. You might expect santosh or something like that. And then the word for gentleness here is saushilya. Saushilya.
King of Hearts says, Ut sacris. Keep it sacred.
Nice.
Ut sacris.
And so this word for gentleness here, saushilya. I've reached out to Vasudev, my friend Vasudev, who knows Sanskrit. And I said, is this word related to saumya? Because we find the word saumya a lot in the Bhagavatam, which is often translated as gentle, right? And he said, no, that the two are not related to each other. Let me see. I had a note about this somewhere. Oh, yeah, over here. Okay. He said that one word, the word saushila, what is it again? Saushilya. He said it's derived from sushila, which means su means good or well, sushila means well-behaved. Okay, where saumya comes from soma and means connected to the moon or moon-like, which translates as gentle, kind, etc. Interesting, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so I because I use the database a lot, database.io. Apparently, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Which has, all the Bhagavatam there.
It's like a giant index of Prabhupada's books.
Yeah, all the books are there, and they have links. So, like, you can click on this word and see where it's used and how it's used and how it's translated.
Yeah.
And so I clicked on, I searched and looked at the word saumya. Because I know that word because it's the word that's used right at the beginning. I think it's the 8th verse of the Bhagavatam. First canto, first chapter, text 8, I believe, where the sages of Naimisharanya, they reach out to Sutta Goswami, and they say, Sutta, amongst all of us, you're the most learned, and because you were Saumya, because you served your gurus with that gentle, kind mood, you've been blessed by them with all realization. Right? So that's another example, right, of like the questioner and the hearer being, having the right mood.
Yeah.
Again, Saumya, they're being gentle. And the qualified speaker like impregnating them with transcendental knowledge. And so then I looked up all the times Saumya is used in the Bhagavatam, and there's, I don't know, like 20 times or something like that. And I saw that certain people are called Saumya again and again. One is Vidura.
Okay.
One is Uddhava.
Yep.
One is Sutta Goswami. Especially those three. And a third person, kind of like one is Prahlad is called Saumya once. And unusual, it seems unusual to me, but again and again, Akrura is called gentle, Saumya. Interesting, right?
It's very interesting. I love Akrura.
You do, because sometimes he gets a bit of a bad rap,
Well, because he did deliver Krishna to Kamsa,
He
but
took Krishna out
he
of
had
Vrindavan.
great affection, like incredible affection. He lost his mind when he was going to Vrindavan. He was waiting. Sometimes you just get a bad job.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get sometimes
Trick
you're
of
just
chance.
a trick of chance. You get a bad job, you can't get out of it. He was working for Kamsa. What could he do?
Yeah.
That was his livelihood.
Right.
In his heart of hearts, he was a great devotee. I love Akrura. And his real qualities came out when he got sent to Vrindavan. He was like, what? This is my chance. Got off that chariot, rolled around in the dust. Come on.
Yep.
Begging Krishna to stay with him. Krishna, come visit me later. And Krishna saying, I'll come back. And then he makes another appearance later.
He got caught up in that Shamataka jewel controversy, some scandal or something like that.
No.
But he was gentle, and he was a great soul. Now,
soul.
Ranger Jake on the chat board is saying that he's noticed that in his martial arts practice, that when he's with a good teacher and he's totally there, and by there, I guess he means like fully attentive, right?
Yeah.
And that means respectful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? When the student is like fully attentive, this is something you and I talk about. It's like, because we teach in a lot of yoga forums, let's say.
Yeah.
And Western yoga forums.
Yeah.
Where like, and it's not even that it means it's a bad person or something like that, but like sometimes the Western yoga audience is like, when you're speaking, they kind of like lie down or
sometimes
lounge.
You're giving them like a yoga philosophy class. Kaustubha and myself, we get asked to teach philosophy in people's yoga teacher trainings. So we'll travel all over the world and do that. Or and because they're not our regular students, they're not they're not trained of how to listen. And there's a way to listen. The way to listen is you sit up tall and you lean in. And that way, that tells the speaker that you are eager, just like Bhakti Matthew, the eager one, right? He's always listening eager into that camera. And it makes the speaker want to speak because we are in a culture of descending knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to give the speaker a glass of water. We want to give the speaker a place to sit. But in the Western yoga culture, we show up sometimes to these yoga studios and people are like laying on their back with like a sandbag, a lavender eye pillow on their eyes. Someone's giving them a massage while they're like laying down, and someone's giving that person who's massaging that person a massage. It's like a massage train. And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to be doing here? I'm supposed to be speaking to you guys. You're all like in like a dream zone.
Yeah. And so this is the culture, right? So like if we want to be, and again, I don't want to blame, make anyone feel bad if they've ever done that or anything.
Oh, I do. Okay. Shame them right now. Shame them into God love.
But this is the culture. If we want to really practice yoga, we have to understand the culture, and this is essential to the culture. That's why it's being pointed out here. It didn't have to mention this. It didn't have to be mentioned that these qualities of Vidura, but it's mentioned there so that we can take note. And saying this is why this conversation became so deep and powerful and potent that it was recorded in the Bhagavatam for forever, and we're still speaking about it today, thousands of years later. It has to do with the quality of the participants, and we can see the quality of Vidura is that this gentleness, this kindness that he had, this sensitivity, and that's all wrapped up within in respect, and that's why when I read Ranger Jake's thing here, he says that when he's with a good teacher and he's totally there, and again, I'm understanding that as that attentive, respectful, he said good knowledge just floods the room.
It's one of those things that encourages the speaker to speak. Your sincerity and your eagerness. It's like a clam. It's like a clam. You want the clam to open up. You can't just tap it on the shell. Can't just tap that clam. You got to be soft and sensitive with the clam, and all of a sudden, it opens his mouth up. That's how clams work.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You can't scare that clam. So we gotta. It's like I'm like that as a teacher, and I'm like that as a student. If I'm eager, then I can get. The teacher wants to give me something. If I'm taking the teacher for granted, you get nothing. And the same thing as a teacher, if I feel like people aren't listening, I'm not going to share anything. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to be focused.
Like intentionally or just
no, it's one of those, both.
Okay.
Truthfully, I was teaching the teenage, I was doing some homeschooling, and I volunteered I was teaching them jujitsu, and I was teaching them how to grapple.
In other words, you're beating up little kids for an afternoon.
I was basically beating up children. But I just felt like, I got to this point where these kids are freaking screwing up too much. And they were just they're just not listening. And I'm not used to it. I'm used to, and finally after 4 days, I was like, I'm not teaching you guys. You're not taking this seriously. And, but that's part of it.
Did they snap into, were they like, whoa, we're sorry, master. Please forgive us.
They weren't. So I just dropped the ball with them.
Okay.
I was like, you guys aren't serious. I corrected them 3 times. That's all. And that's why people who teach junior high school, and now it's worse than ever, but it takes a special type of person to teach that age because they're just not disciplined to hear. And it was a failure on my part, I'm saying, but at the same time, because the goal is to really transmit something. Mm-hmm. But the problem is students aren't trained to be students anymore.
Right.
You can't talk, the way they talk to teachers is just there's no focus. They're distracted. One guy's on his phone. It's give me a break. There's supposed to be a transmission of knowledge here. You don't even want to, we don't teach them how to be students. And matter of fact, we give them all type of liberties where they can walk all over the teachers. And then the teachers are begging, please take this. And nothing gets passed on. There's a way to be a student and there's a way to be a teacher. And this is clearly outlined here in the Bhagavatam.
That's reminding me of those old Shanti mantras. Sahanao bhavatu, Sahanao bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai. We got to get hey, can you pull up a translation of that, Mara? Can you find that?
She's like, what?
Yeah. I don't know. Shanti mantras.
It's you didn't do good with that Latin thing. Let's see if you can get this. So you get the Sanskrit. So ancient languages, Mara, and ancient languages.
The idea was that a student and a teacher, before they would begin their daily studies, together they would sit down and chant these mantras. And the mantras are beautiful, right? They got, just the sound is in the way that they're chanting is kind of it draws in the mind and the heart. But they would express, in those mantras, there's an expression of the relationship between the student and the teacher, and the respect that they have for one another, and the love that they have for one another, and how they don't want anything, like you said, keep it sacred. Really, it's just about that. Let's keep this sacred. Let's not let any animosity become between teacher and student. And so when there's that love and that type of respect, and again, we were talking about etiquette last week, the respect that and honor that the student shows the teacher, and the real genuine from the heart affection and care, that comes from the teacher to the student, that's sacred, right? And Bhagavatam is going to point out that it's sacred, and it's going to show you the qualities of how that's kept sacred. And if we take this in, then that yoga becomes real. That yoga becomes deep. It becomes potent. It becomes effective. Why are you laughing, Raghu? Come on, tell me.
I'm laughing because everybody is extra looking in the camera right now. I don't know if you picked up. I feel guilty, like I've shamed everybody into like, oh, what am I doing?
I think it's a little bit more lenient in
It's
in
different.
the virtual world. Like
In the
if you're
virtual,
like,
I don't care if it's some guys on an exercise bike. Tom Essig's doing some video editing. I'm good with it. That's all good. It's like when we're teaching a live teacher training and you got someone literally laying down with a lavender eye pillow. That's when it's like, come on, guys.
and Bhakti-yogi dogs, they get a pass.
Bhakti-yogi dogs get a pass. I think it's, if I was listening to this class and I wasn't me, I would be doing yoga in the background or something, or push-ups or something like that. Because the idea is you want to be able, you want to hear, you want to fill your head with hearing, and you want to show respect to the teacher. But I get it. It's okay here anyway. It's in person. That's when it really sort of makes a difference, I think. Yeah.
I got a did you ever find a translation, Mary?
Yeah, but I don't.
Okay, I got one.
Okay.
So here, Om. May we all be protected. May we all be nourished. May we work together with great energy. May our intellect be sharpened. May our studies be effective. Let there be no animosity among us. Peace, peace, peace. Right? Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Peace, peace, peace.
Okay. So, like, you and I, we were fortunate that maybe in our youth we might not have had so many great teacher-student relationships, but when we were young adults, we did meet teachers that inspired us, and again, not just with their learning, but with their character that we wanted to emulate. And we learned all of this kind of thing. Hopefully, I could have learned it better, but we entered into this kind of thing, and we learned about this, and this was our introduction to the world of yoga for in a deeper way. So I love these Shanti mantras. They're nice, right? Imagine sitting down with a teacher that you really respect every morning and chanting these mantras. Maybe this should be our mantras that we chant in the morning too.
It's just so nice. It's like taking education for granted. It's such a sad. It's so sad what education has become. I feel bad, and it's changed radically even since we were kids. I mean, first of all, as a student, I was despicable. I was actually I'm going to be frank right here. I was a despicable student, but I think now it's even worse. But we basically had to relearn life when we moved into an ashram. We relearned everything. Yeah. We learned how to eat, how to cook, how to study, how to move our body, how to breathe, how to relate to people, how to defecate. It's true. Okay. True. How to wear strange, peculiar Brahmin underwear, all that stuff. We had to relearn these things. It's almost like being 4 years old again. Maybe that was too much information there.
Okay.
It's like underwear. What went on in that ashram?
Okay. In any case,
okay. All right. Let's go back.
So it's mentioned here that Maitreya, it describes him as the great, fathomless, learned sage, and he had just come from hearing, witnessing the conversation between Uddhava and Krishna just before Krishna departs, and Vidura, who's perfect in his gentleness, and he's satisfied in transcendence, which means he's not going to be trying to use this knowledge for some kind of material gain or twist it or warp it in some way. He just wants to go deeper, deeper, deeper into spiritual life. So the inquiry is made. Text number 2.
Vidura said, "O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress." That's a good one. On the contrary, we
were talking about happiness, right?
Yeah. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness.
Could you read that again, please?
That's a double reader.
Yeah.
Ever see when people put posts on the internet and Instagram, and they'll say, "Read that again." Okay. That's what you read this again. "Oh, great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness.
So let's talk about fruitive activities and just kind of define that.
Yeah, that's another word I say all the time. Fruitive. Never said it before I got into bhakti.
Yeah.
Never.
So fruitive, literally it's referring to the idea of karma, that there's a result for everything. So fruit means like, you plant a tree and that's
You get a fruit.
the cause, and eventually you get the fruit, and that's the result, right? So similarly, if one understands how karma works, the idea is that for everything that I do, there's going to be a result. And if I can catch on to that, then I can recognize that let me work in such a way, let me act in such a way where I'll get pleasurable results. And there's a whole science in the Vedas built around that. So, one may do that in a refined way as the Vedas prescribe. And, I'm going to practice great piety. I'm going to perform rituals to express my gratitude. And in this way, I'm going to get really great results in future lives. Or one may perform that in a more crude way. It's just like, I'm working to get money to go buy something that I want, as simply as that. But both of those ideas could be categorized as fruitive activities. And people, they do that because they think it's going to lead to happiness, right? I'll get what my mind and my senses are desiring, and then I'm going to be happy. But Vidura is saying, come on, we just got to be a little bit thoughtful. We just got to observe a little bit more closely, and we realize that people are doing this like crazy, but they're really not finding lasting happiness, right? They're not finding deep, lasting happiness. So he says people don't attain happiness, and they find neither satiation, like, okay, now I'm satisfied. I got what I want, and I feel good now.
Now we're almost like children. I want that toy. I want that toy. I want that toy. You get them the toy, and they're bored with the toy.
I want another toy.
I want another toy. You got that? You got that, Montgomery? I'm looking at Montgomery. Montgomery. She's like, I want a toy.
So they find neither satiation, nor does it mitigate distress. Distress still comes. It doesn't go away. The pains of this world don't go away when we get the results of our actions. He says, on the contrary, we see it just agitates us even more. We get more and more aggravated, and that's the world that we see around us. So please, therefore, give us instructions. How should one live for real happiness?
Kaustubha, it goes back to the initial thing I was talking about.
That's what I'm
about
saying.
happiness, right?
Yeah.
Because what are the things, my ideas of enjoying out there? How can I get this? How can I collect this? And what stuff can I bring to my life? What is the actual thing that actually satiates me? It's the things I really can control. And those are the things we talk about on Makeover Monday. I can control my diet. I can control what I consume, how much I consume. I can control if I take care of my body, to have some like physical, exercise with my body, how I react to things, how I relate to people, my regulation. Those things I can control for the most part. And with those things just becomes a happiness, a type of like more subtle joy, like a backdrop, a soundtrack, of pleasure to my life, as opposed to my pleasure is from achieving this out there, and I'm going to get it, and it's going to be good. It's all sort of like somewhere out there in the future, but it's not something tangible. So that pleasure, which appears bitter in the beginning and is nectar in the end, that's that pleasure in the mode of goodness. This is what we're shooting for.
Yeah. Now there's a piece of a purport here.
Piece of a purport?
Piece
of a purport. It's tongue twister week. Duryodhana does dreaded. Yeah. That was a good one. Duryodhana does dreaded deeds. Duryodhana does dreaded deeds. Duryodhana does dreaded deeds. Duryodhana does dreaded deeds.
Okay. Now this is a little from the commentary. Prabhupada writes, a common man cannot understand the Lord. He must first know the real position of his life under the influence of the illusory energy. I'm under the influence of we need to recognize that, right? I'm getting controlled here. My body and my mind are telling me where I'm going to find happiness, and it doesn't work, right? So he must first know the real position of his life under the influence of the illusory energy. In illusion, one thinks that he can be happy only by fruitive activities. But what actually happens is that one becomes more and more entangled in the network of action and reaction and does not find any solution to the problem of life. That's what's going on, right? He says, and then he says, this is interesting, Prabhupada writes this, right? He says, there is a nice song in this connection. Now, I don't know who wrote this song. It sounds like a Bengali bhajan of some sort, right? You think it's
Yeah,
a
no, all right, go on.
So he says, but the way the Prabhupada phrase it, he says, there is a nice song in this connection. And he quotes the song. And here's the lyrics. Because of a great desire to have all happiness in my life, I built this house. But unfortunately, the whole scheme has turned to ashes because the house was unexpectedly set on fire.
Maybe he's talking about that song, Burning Down the House.
Disco Inferno. I don't
that's
think
what
he was
he's
talking about that one. I think he's talking about some Bengali bhajan there. But it's just the simplest way, right? I build my house because I think it's going to make me happy, and then the house burns down. And he's saying more or less that's, a metaphor of material life in general. He says, the law of nature is like that. Everyone tries to become happy by planning in the material world. But the law of nature is so cruel that it sets fire to one's schemes. The fruit of worker is not happy in his schemes, nor is there any satiation of his continuous hankering for happiness. Right? Just laying it down.
Burn down the house, man.
Yeah.
That is our material plight. It's one of those things, like if you sort of get into this yoga philosophy, almost like, I want to say prematurely, because I say prematurely because there is a time in my life when there's great hope in the material world. It's just part of like being young. There's great hope in the material world.
Yeah.
And as you get older, a lot of opportunities, the windows close.
Mm-hmm.
You start seeing the world from a different vantage point.
Yeah.
Here, north of 50 years old, I see the world in a different place. And much different when you're 18, when everything's looking up and all this opportunity. And not that life is hopeless, but that matter is hopeless. And that's the distinction. Spiritual life is very hopeful. It's very beautiful. It's very wonderful. It's something to invest in. Material life is actually hopeless. Yeah. We're here to give you a message of there is no hope this morning. Good morning. There's no hope in the material world, but there's great hope in our spiritual life. And that's sort of the message of the Bhagavatam. Stop all the investment or minimize the investment. And sometimes it takes a great material, the bottom dropping out of your material life to even get that. Sometimes we won't even get it until the bottom drop. There's a sinkhole and I lost my house. I lost this. I lost that. I lost my health. I lost my hair. I lost my a child. I lost my parent. Sometimes it takes that to understand, like, oh, I get it. This is what the material world has in store for me. It's quite tragic if it's analyzed, or if you just study history. It's quite tragic.
Yeah. There's an encouragement from, let's say, the tradition of the Upanishads, or we could even say the entire Vedic tradition, right? We're encouraged to look at material endeavor, material quote unquote happiness, with some pessimism, with a healthy dose of pessimism.
Yeah, you can be cynical in bhakti, but it's cynicism. Cynicism is towards your material happiness. Like sometimes you talk to some devotee and you'll say, "Hey, how's it going?" And they'll say something like, "Today is going okay." In the material, they'll say something like, it's the material world, but today is pretty good, because that at any minute, everything can just drop. There can be an earthquake, a volcano, the house can collapse, anything.
The house will burn. So we're encouraged to turn a pessimistic eye to endeavors for material happiness, but we are encouraged to strive with great vigor towards spiritual happiness. And so, which reminds me of another important verse. This is also, early in Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, text 18. And this is a classic. And this is a formula that we really need to just if you understand this, basically, if you get this verse that I'm about to read, okay, I'm gonna like really build this up here, right? But if you get the message in this, it's a big time life changer. You know, this is a game changer. This is how your yoga starts to really get real and transformative. Here's the verse.
I'm eager.
You're eager?
Look at me. I'm so eager. I'm like leaning in on this. Tell me. I need a game changer.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 18. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala Loka. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be attained automatically in course of time. How so? And it's saying, now take a look at life. Step back, right? Zoom out, take a look at life. Just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them.
That's a great analogy, isn't it?
Right? Yeah. So just like we don't endeavor for miseries in life, but they come.
Like nobody says, "Hey, let's break our tibia today. Let's go ahead and break our tibia."
But it happens.
But it happens. You just, oh crap, I broke my tibia.
Yeah. And
right?
so they're saying, just as you don't endeavor to break your tibia, what is a tibia? Is it in the foot?
I think that's the front part of the shin.
Okay. So just as you don't endeavor to break your tibia, but it comes of its own accord. You don't have to work for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend your time trying to figure out how to do it. You don't have to invest energy in it. It comes. So saying similarly, you know, pleasures come too, right? Pleasures in life, that type of happiness in life, that'll come too. It comes automatically. It's based on our previous activities, you know.
Just like, you know, everyone's going out and you're sort of like, why aren't I going out tonight? And you end up staying home. You had a great time. And sometimes you make a huge endeavor at a great cost. You go on a big trip, it costs a lot, and everything just sucked. You make a plan for happiness and it just didn't work. But then there's no plan and it was great.
You know, one day I was at this has stayed lodged in my memory for decades now.
What?
But one day I was, you know, in my humble way trying to share Bhagavad-gita with people at a Pink Floyd concert at Yankee Stadium in like 1995 or something like that.
That's a great place to disseminate transcendental knowledge, I think. That's what you're...
I was in the parking garage of Yankee Stadium, and
that's a great place. Another great place to disseminate transcendental knowledge.
And so everyone was like, I think it was like the first time Pink Floyd had like toured in a very long time, and people were like really psyched up for this, you know.
Yeah.
And this Jeep, you know, with the top down of people had come in from New Jersey, you know, and they're driving, and they had Pink Floyd blasting, and they were just like totally like, you know,
this was our generation, wasn't it? This was our generation.
They had just arrived, you know, and they were like young and beautiful and about to enjoy like crazy, and they were just like so happy and pumped up, you know. And they're driving, and you know how like those parking garages, they have, you know, like these beams, you know, like these kind of like steel girders, right?
Yeah, it's like, you know, it can't be over 10 feet or something. Is that what you mean?
Well, no, no. Well, I'm just saying, you know, what happened was they were all psyched up, and they just arrived, and everything was great. All the arrangements had made. They procured the tickets. They had the car. They got, you know, I'm sure they had their drugs. You know, they had everything they need. They had the boys where they had the girls. Girls had the boys. You know, everything was just right. Finally, the material formula was just all came together and gelled in the perfect moment, and then in that mood, you know, the driver must have been distracted, and he drove that Jeep straight into one of those steel beams. And it was at just enough speed that I just saw somehow it hit that, and like, you know, like the transmission thing, like you know, that holds all the oil in the you know, it just dropped out of the bottom of the Jeep, and the oil just like spilled like everywhere. And you know, especially back then, the South Bronx, which is where Yankee Stadium is, that was just a total jungle.
Yeah, that was scary.
So it's like, hold it. In one instance, everyone realized that, at least the driver had to realize, I'm not going into this concert tonight, because if I don't take care of this car right now, I'm going to be stuck in the jungle of the South Bronx, you know. And in an instant, the house burned, right?
That is material life. Burn down the house, material world.
Yeah, so got to be a little pessimistic about material happiness. Got to strive for that spiritual happiness, right?
Thanks, everybody. Join me for yoga class at 7 a.m. at supersoulyoga.com. Supersoulyoga.com. Join me there.
Hey, Raghu, Lyra Juno was distributing books at that same tour in Philly.
What?
That's right.
The Pink Floyd concert when she was 11?
I was there too. I would have been there too. We were both there, Laura. Look at that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for contributing, for being here, for being part of this community. Really grateful. It's a community-supported podcast. If you like what we're doing, go to patreon.com. Join our little family. We appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who joins us on Zoom. If you want to join us on Zoom, email Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And then you can join this little dance party we have here as well.
Look at Montgomery going
Get
over
away. Get Montgomery. She's ready to go.
there. Yeah.